The call from the stars. The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, interrupting every broadcast frequency across Earth. It repeated in perfect English, Mandarin, Hindi, Spanish, every human language simultaneously. Please help us. They are consuming everything. We cannot stop them. Our worlds are dying. For 72 hours, the transmission repeated without pause. Scientists confirmed it originated from a star system 47 light-years away. Yet somehow, it arrived instantaneously, bypassing the laws of physics as humans understood them. In the United Nations Emergency Council chamber, representatives from Earth's major powers argued over how to respond. "It has to be a trap," General Harris said, his weathered face creased with suspicion. "No alien civilization could know our languages so precisely." Dr. Amara Okafor, director of SETI's First Contact Division, shook her head. "The signal contains embedded translation matrices. It's designed to be understood by any technologically capable species. This is a genuine distress call." After 3 days of heated debate, Earth made its decision. Humanity would answer. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the observation deck of the EDF Atlas, Earth's most advanced warship. At 38, she'd spent half her life in space, commanding vessels through the asteroid belt and beyond. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, her olive skin bearing the subtle pallor of someone who lived beneath artificial light. Captain, her XO, Commander Jackson Chen, approached with a tablet. "Final system checks complete. The drive is ready." Elena nodded, studying the blue curve of Earth below. "Did you ever think we'd be making first contact in a warship, Chen?" "If they need help against something that's killing them," Chen replied, "they'll be glad we brought guns." The Atlas carried a crew of 300 and enough firepower to level continents. Earth's governments had united in their decision. If humanity was stepping onto the galactic stage, they would do so prepared for the worst. "All departments report ready, Captain," Lieutenant Diaz announced from the command console. Elena took her seat in the center chair. "Engage the Alcubierre drive, Lieutenant. Take us to the coordinates." The stars blurred as the Atlas folded space around itself, traveling 47 light-years in just under 3 weeks. They arrived at the edge of an unfamiliar solar system. A massive ring-shaped station orbited the fourth planet, a blue-green world reminiscent of Earth, but with 2 small moons. "We're being scanned," Security Chief Valentina Sokolov reported, her Russian accent thickening as she focused on her console. "Non-intrusive. They're just looking us over." "Open a channel," Elena ordered. The main view screen flickered to life. Elena managed to keep her expression neutral despite her shock. The being on screen had 6 limbs, 4 arms, and 2 legs, with iridescent blue-green skin that seemed to shimmer under the station's lights. Its large, oval eyes blinked vertically. You actually came." The alien spoke, its mouth not quite matching the words, which came through the same translation matrix that had decoded their distress call. "I am Ambassador Zrith of the Galactic Coalition. We sent our call into the void, but never imagined." "Captain Alina Reyes of the Earth Defense Force vessel Atlas, we received your distress call." The alien's body trembled visibly. "You are Deathworlders." Elena frowned. "Deathworlders. Your planet is classified as a death world in our records. Too dangerous to approach. Your gravity, atmosphere, pathogens, predators, your species' aggression levels." Ambassador Zrith's 4 hands performed a complex gesture, all lethal by Coalition standards. Elena exchanged glances with Chen. "Then why ask for our help?" "Because what hunts us is worse than anything even you might comprehend," Zrith replied. "We call it the Scourge. It consumes everything in its path. Billions have already died." The Atlas docked at the enormous station called Harmony. As the airlock cycled, Dr. Eliza Santos, the ship's chief xenobiologist, checked readings on her tablet. "Atmosphere is breathable, but thin by our standards. Gravity at about 0.7 Earth normal. Our biology is completely foreign to them. So maintain protocol, she instructed the landing party. Elena led a team of 12 onto the station. What struck her immediately was the beauty of the place. Harmony lived up to its name. Organic curves blended with crystalline structures. Gardens bloomed throughout transparent sections, and soft light emanated from the walls themselves. Ambassador Zrith waited with a delegation of beings so diverse Elena could hardly process them all. Some floated without visible means of support, others balanced on multiple limbs, and one appeared to be comprised entirely of interlocking geometric shapes that shifted constantly. The coalition representatives kept a noticeable distance from the humans. "Please forgive our caution," Zrith said. "Your biology is concerning to us." "We understand," Elena replied. "We come in peace and to offer assistance." A crystalline being stepped forward, light dancing through its transparent form. "I am Elder Tlumn of the Council. Your vessel, it is a weapon. The Atlas is a warship," Elena confirmed, "built for defense and combat." A ripple of what Elena could only interpret as distress moved through the alien delegation. One small creature with multiple eyes seemed to collapse into itself, caught by its companions. "Your entire ship is designed for war." Zrith's voice wavered. "We had heard rumors about Deathworlders, but to witness it..." Elena frowned. "You asked for help against something killing your people. What did you expect us to bring? Perhaps scientists, diplomats." Elder Tlum's crystalline form pulsed with light. "Not warriors." Elena looked around the beautiful station. Everything designed for comfort and beauty. No obvious weapons or defenses. "Show us what we're facing," she said firmly. The central chamber contained a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Hundreds of green dots represented coalition worlds. A growing red mass consumed one edge of their territory. "The scourge began at the edge of known space," Zrith explained. "It is not intelligent as we understand intelligence. It simply consumes." Elena studied the map. "How fast does it move?" "It has devoured 23 worlds in one standard cycle," Elder Tlumn answered. "Billions dead. It leaves nothing behind." "And your defenses?" Commander Chen asked. The aliens exchanged uncomfortable looks. "We have deterrent technology," Zrith said carefully. "Designed to discourage aggressive species. Nothing meant for war." Elena's expression hardened. "Show me footage of the scourge." The holographic display changed to show a lush world surrounded by what looked like a living cloud. Billions of insect-like creatures, each the size of a small car, covered the planet's surface. Plants, animals, even buildings dissolved under their touch. "The scourge consumes all organic matter and converts it to more of itself," Zrith explained. "Our deterrents barely slow it down." The humans watched in silence. Finally, Elena turned to the aliens. "We'll help you, but you need to understand something about humans. We come from a world where everything tried to kill us. The weather, the animals, even microscopic things you can't see. We survived by fighting. It's what we know." Zrith's 4 arms moved in a complex gesture. "What are you saying, Captain?" "I'm saying our methods might shock you. We won't just try to stop this scourge. We'll destroy it." Several aliens backed away. Elder Tlum's light dimmed noticeably. "You speak of extermination," the crystal being asked, pulses of red light flashing through its form. "I speak of survival," Elena answered firmly. "Yours and ours. Because if this scourge keeps growing, eventually it will find Earth too." The coalition representatives huddled together, speaking in voices too low for the translation matrix to catch. Finally, Zrith approached Elena. "We have no choice but to accept your offer, Captain. But please understand, violence is foreign to our nature. What you consider normal may be difficult for us to witness." Elena nodded. "I'll need all the data you have on the scourge. Biology, behavior patterns, weaknesses, everything." "And then?" Zrith asked. "Then I call Earth. We're going to need more ships." As the humans returned to the Atlas, Elder Tlumn turned to Zrith. Have we made a terrible mistake? These creatures seem as dangerous as the scourge itself. Zrith watched the humans depart, their heavy footsteps echoing in the corridor. Perhaps, but the scourge gives us no choice. We must hope that these Deathworlders can save us. Zrith's voice dropped to a whisper, and that they will leave when their task is done. The laboratory aboard the Atlas hummed with activity. Dr. Santos hunched over microscope slides and holographic projections, studying samples of the scourge provided by the Coalition. After 3 days, Captain Rice sent her report to Earth. The response was swift. 7 more warships and 3 research vessels were dispatched. The first vessels would arrive within weeks thanks to the new Alcubierre drives. Fascinating, Dr. Santos muttered, adjusting holographic controls. Their cellular structure is unlike anything I've seen before. Commander Chen stood nearby, watching the scientists work. Can you find a weakness? Santos looked up, her eyes bright with the thrill of discovery. Oh yes, everything has a weakness. These creatures are connected through a biological network, a primitive hive mind. But their rapid growth has a cost. On the bridge, Captain Rice met with Ambassador Zrith and Elder Tlun. The holographic display showed the scourge's advance toward the Coalition core worlds. Your people need to evacuate these systems immediately, Alina said, highlighting several worlds in the scourge's path. Zrith's body trembled. That's 14 billion people. We don't have enough ships. Then we buy you time, Alina replied. She touched a control, and the display changed to show a battle plan. We'll establish a defensive line here at the Galen Rift. It's a natural bottleneck. Elder Tlun's crystalline form dimmed slightly. You intend to fight the scourge directly. Our deterrents cannot harm them. Ours can, Alina said simply. And Dr. Santos believes she's found a biological weakness we can exploit. As if on cue, Dr. Santos entered the bridge carrying a data crystal. Captain, I've developed a targeted pathogen. It attacks the scourge's unique biology while leaving other life forms untouched. She placed the crystal on the table. This contains the formula. We'll need to produce it in massive quantities. Ambassador Zrith backed away from the crystal. You created a disease. Deliberately. It's a biological weapon, Santos explained, designed specifically to combat the scourge. Elder Tlum's voice took on a higher pitch. This is forbidden. Life should not be weaponized. Alina's expression hardened. The scourge is killing your people by the billions. Would you rather maintain your moral stance or survive? A tense silence filled the bridge. Finally, Zrith spoke, voice barely above a whisper. How would this weapon be deployed? Dr. Santos brought up a simulation on the display. We load it into missile warheads. On impact, the pathogen disperses in an aerosol cloud. It infects the scourge organisms, disrupting their cellular functions and preventing reproduction. The infected units will die within hours. More importantly, they'll spread the pathogen to others in the hive network. You're talking about killing trillions of living creatures, Tlun said, light flickering erratically through its form. Creatures that are eating your worlds, Chen countered. The discussion was interrupted by Lieutenant Diaz. Captain, the first Earth reinforcements have arrived. Admiral Hernandez requests to speak with you. Within days, 3 human warships had assembled at the Galen Rift. Coalition representatives watched in horror and fascination as humans prepared for war with an efficiency that spoke of long practice. Weapons were checked, fighter craft were fueled, and missiles were loaded with Santos's biological agent. The Scourge Vanguard will reach us in 18 hours, Admiral Hernandez announced during the final briefing. Our strategy is simple: hold the line and deploy the pathogen. If Santos is right, we'll see results within days. Ambassador Zrith addressed the human commanders formally. The Coalition has existed for 6,000 years without weapons of war. Today we witness methods that challenge our deepest beliefs, but we have no choice. We thank you for your assistance, though your ways frighten us. Alina nodded respectfully. Sometimes survival requires doing frightening things, Ambassador. As the briefing concluded, the sensor officer's voice came over the comm. "Captain, we've detected Scourge units accelerating toward our position. They'll be here in 6 hours, not 18. "They're adapting," Dr. Santos whispered. "Learning." Elena turned to her crew. "Battle stations. The fight begins now." Part 2. Nature's Monsters. Space itself seemed to darken as the Scourge approached. A living cloud of billions of insect-like creatures moving with singular purpose. From the bridge of the Atlas, Captain Elena Reyes watched the tactical display with cold determination. "Fighter squadrons in defensive formation," Commander Chen reported. "Weapons systems online and ready." Dr. Santos stood at the science station, monitoring the incoming data. "The swarm's metabolic rate is increasing. They're preparing to feed." Ambassador Zrith and a small delegation of coalition representatives observed from the rear of the bridge, their alien features showing clear signs of distress. Even through the barriers of biology and evolution, fear was recognizable. "Target the leading edge of the swarm," Elena ordered. "Deploy the pathogen missiles on my mark." "Captain," Lieutenant Diaz called from communications. "The Coalition observation vessel is transmitting. They're requesting we attempt communication with the Scourge first." Elena turned to Zrith. "You've tried this before." The ambassador's iridescent skin pulsed. "Many times, they do not respond to signals, but our ethics require we attempt peaceful resolution before." Zrith struggled to find the word. "Before harm." "We don't have time." Admiral Hernandez's voice came through the comms. "The Scourge will be in range in 60 seconds. Elena faced the view screen, where the approaching mass now blotted out the stars. "Fire the missiles." Dozens of warheads streaked from the human vessels, detonating in precisely calculated patterns throughout the leading edge of the swarm. No explosions, just clouds of microscopic particles, invisible to the naked eye, but deadly to the Scourge's unique biology. For several tense minutes, nothing seemed to happen. The swarm continued its advance. "No effect," Commander Chen said, his voice tight. Dr. Santos shook her head, fingers flying across her console. "Give it time. The pathogen needs to wait there." On the view screen, sections of the swarm began to change color, shifting from midnight black to a sickly gray. The leading edge slowed, its movement becoming erratic. "The pathogen is working," Santos announced, excitement in her voice. "The infected units are dying and spreading the contagion through the network." Ambassador Zrith made a sound that the translation matrix couldn't interpret, something between a gasp and a sob. Elder Tloon's crystalline form dimmed to near transparency. "You're killing them by the billions," Tloon whispered. "They're not stopping," Captain Elena noted, ignoring the comment. The swarm had slowed but continued to advance. "The outer edge is still active." Dr. Santos frowned at her readings. "The core organisms are adapting, sequestering the infected units. They're learning faster than I anticipated." Elena turned to tactical. "Launch fighters. Target the segregated sections. Don't let them isolate the infection." Human fighters streaked into the void, small and nimble against the vast biological mass. Precision weapons fire broke apart the swarm's attempts to contain the spreading pathogen. "Admiral," Elena called, "the Scourge is adapting to our biological weapon. We need to hit them with everything we have before they develop immunity. All ships, this is Admiral Hernandez. Full weapons barrage. Target the densest concentrations." The combined human fleet unleashed their arsenal. Railguns fired hyper-accelerated projectiles that tore through the swarm at significant fractions of light speed. Plasma weapons superheated sections into vapor. Lasers carved precise channels through the mass. The coalition representatives watched in stunned silence as humans demonstrated the art of war they had perfected over millennia of conflict. "We're pushing them back," Commander Chen reported after hours of continuous battle. "The pathogen has infected nearly 40% of the swarm." Dr. Santos shook her head. "But the core is developing resistance. We need a new approach." The battle raged for 3 days. The Scourge adapted to each human tactic, but the humans adapted faster, drawing on millennia of evolutionary pressure from their deadly homeworld. Each time the Scourge found a countermeasure, humans devised 2 more attack vectors. On the 4th day, while the fleet continued its assault, Alina led a ground team to the surface of Nerix, the Coalition world directly in the Scourge's path. 14 million Coalition citizens were being evacuated, but the process would take weeks they didn't have. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez surveyed the alien city with practiced eyes. Beautiful place. Shame we have to wreck it. We're not wrecking it, Alina corrected her. We're saving it. Dr. Wei, the scientist who had accompanied the ground team, set up his equipment in the city's central plaza. The Scourge has developed resistance to our airborne pathogen, but they're still vulnerable to direct infection. If I modify the delivery system, Coalition evacuation coordinators worked frantically to load citizens onto transport ships. One of them, a tall being named Vrel with tentacle-like appendages, approached Alina. Your vessels are bringing more weapons, Vrel observed. Is this necessary? The Scourge will reach this planet within 24 hours, Alina answered. We're setting up a defensive perimeter. But your ships in orbit are holding them back, Vrel said, confusion evident. Not for long. They're learning, adapting. We need to be ready when they break through. Vrel's appendages twisted in what Alina had learned was a gesture of distress. You speak as if warfare is normal. Alina's eyes hardened. On Earth, it is. Our entire history is written in conflict. With nature, with each other. It's how we survived. A terrible way to live, Vrel said quietly. Maybe. But it's why we're still alive. The Scourge reached Nerix 18 hours later, earlier than projected. They had indeed adapted, developing a resistance to the human pathogen and altering their approach to minimize exposure to human weapons. Alina's ground team had established defensive positions around the main evacuation centers. When the first wave of Scourge creatures breached the upper atmosphere, the humans were ready. Remember, Alina instructed her team, their adaptations are strongest against our last attack vector. Dr. Wei's new compound should bypass their resistance. The sky darkened as the swarm descended. Up close, the creatures were even more horrifying, each the size of a small car, with multiple limbs ending in dissolving agents that broke down matter on contact. Hold until they reach the marked line, Alina ordered. Then hit them with everything. The Scourge crossed the boundary, and human weapons erupted in perfect coordination. Dr. Wei's modified pathogen dispersed in precisely targeted areas. While conventional weapons created physical barriers, the swarm couldn't easily circumvent. For 6 hours they held the line, buying time for thousands more Coalition citizens to escape. The cost was high. 17 human soldiers dead, dozens wounded. But the evacuation continued. During a brief lull, Ambassador Zrith found Alina at the forward command post. The ambassador stared at the human captain, who was covered in dirt and blood, some of it her own. You're injured, Zrith observed. Alina glanced at the gash on her arm. It's nothing. The med team patched it. You fight even when wounded. Of course. Our species would retreat, recover, avoid further harm. That's why you're losing, Alina said bluntly. The Scourge doesn't stop, so neither can we. Zrith was silent for a moment. I'm beginning to understand why your world is classified as a death world. Not just the environment, but you yourselves. We're products of our environment, Alina replied. Earth tried to kill us every day of our evolution. We learned to fight back. The Coalition has existed for 6,000 years without war, Zrith said. We thought that was strength. It is strength, Alina answered, checking her weapon. Just a different kind than ours. Over the next 3 weeks, the pattern repeated across the Coalition frontier. Human forces established defensive lines, deployed new biological countermeasures developed by their scientists, and held back the Scourge long enough for evacuations to proceed. The Scourge continued to adapt, but to the Coalition's astonishment, humans adapted faster. When biological weapons became less effective, they deployed nanite swarms. When the Scourge developed resistance to those, humans switched to gravitational disruption fields that literally tore the creatures apart. On the Coalition command vessel, the High Council gathered to receive Captain Reyes's report. The Scourge has been pushed back from all populated systems, Elena informed them. Dr. Santos and Dr. Wei have developed a permanent containment strategy. We've seeded the buffer zone with self-replicating defensive systems that will prevent them from advancing again. Elder Tlum's crystalline form glowed with a blue light that Elena had learned indicated relief. You've saved trillions of lives, Captain. At a cost, Elena acknowledged. We lost 4 ships and over 600 personnel. The council members were silent, processing the scale of human sacrifice. For a species that avoided even the concept of violence, the willingness of humans to die fighting was incomprehensible. What happens now? Ambassador Zrith asked. Now, we establish ongoing defenses. My government proposes a joint monitoring station at the boundary. We'll maintain a presence here to ensure the Scourge doesn't threaten Coalition space again. And if they evolve past your defenses, an avian council member asked. Elena's expression was grim but determined. Then we'll evolve our response. That's what humans do. Later, as the Atlas prepared to depart for Earth with the remains of their fallen comrades, Ambassador Zrith visited Captain Reyes one final time. Our records classified Earth as a death world, Zrith said, a place so dangerous that its native species must be constantly aggressive to survive. That's pretty accurate, Elena admitted. We feared you when you answered our call. We wondered if we had made a terrible mistake inviting Deathworlders into our space. Zrith's 4 hands formed a gesture Elena now recognized as profound respect. We did not understand that creatures forged in fire would be our salvation. Elena nodded slowly. The thing about coming from a death world, Ambassador, is that it teaches you one fundamental truth. What truth is that? Whatever tries to kill you makes you stronger if you survive. Humanity has been surviving for a very long time. As the Atlas broke orbit, carrying its crew of survivors and warriors back toward their harsh homeworld, the Coalition began to reevaluate their understanding of the galaxy. Perhaps there was value in the strength that came from struggle. Perhaps there was wisdom in learning from those who had faced death and emerged victorious. And perhaps in the vast darkness between stars, having deadly friends was better than facing the void alone.